mind standing so that our board members are able to identify you? We hope to make this a very worthwhile program for all of you. Thank you. You can go ahead and have a seat. I think we have a really good program today, and we'd like to go ahead and get started, not to leave our guest speakers take up too much time with theirs. I want to start off with the three guest speakers that we have today are from the Timken company, and they're in different functions of the Timken company. So we're going to start off with Mr. Paul Hart, Mr. Eric. He is the Vice President of Marketing, and he's had a very interesting and diverse background, and he's going to share some of that with you. Thanks, Eric.
So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come and talk with everyone this weekend. It's exciting for me. Deb introduced me as having a very interesting background. I'm not sure what that really means, but we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into this, and it's been a little bit of fun. I'm currently the Vice President of Marketing for the Timken company, and what we wanted to talk about today is sort of the subject of marketing. And the things that I will cover is kind of what is marketing, what does it do, how does it fit within the business, and then talk a little bit about future jobs. And I'm going to talk at a pretty high level. So if you have questions, we have time at the end where you can ask any questions that you'd like, and I think that probably will be the best part of the discussion in my mind. So I could talk about marketing for hours on end. I have 735 slides, but I've narrowed it down to 3 for you guys, just so you don't get bored with it. Forward and backwards. I think I can do this. So let's talk a little bit about marketing, what it is. And from my standpoint, before we talk about kind of what it does, I'd like to talk a little bit about what the goals are. And for me, when we talk about goals, there's really 3 primary goals. The first one is to attract in new customers. The second one would be to grow our share at customers, so sell more to those customers. And then the third piece is to retain the customers that we can serve profitably. And when you think about it, those are really goals that are shared across most businesses. So pretty much any job that you work at, in the future, I will guarantee you that people at that company or at that job are going to be saying, hey, we got to go attract some new people, we got to make sure that we service those people well and keep them, and we got to try to give them more things to grow. So let's talk a little bit about what marketing does then. And at the bottom of the screen, again, you see 3 pieces there. So the first thing that marketing folks need to do is really understand what customers need. So when you think about a future job, a lot of what marketing people do is try to analyze information, try to talk to customers and gain insights from that to understand what they really need. And then what we want to do is create products that are really attractive to customers or meet those needs that they have. And then lastly, what we want to do is we have to communicate that to people as to why that's important to them and why they should be interested in those things. So I was trying to think through a few examples, and actually we have a number of examples that we could talk about, but maybe an easy one is cars. So pretty much everybody here, I'm assuming, is familiar with cars or is already driving cars. And with cars today, there's a feature called anti-lock brakes. So when I was in high school and we were driving cars and you stepped on the brake, the wheels would lock up and you would skid. And it was a dangerous environment sometimes. So there was innovations that came about that allowed you to step on the brake and the wheels would not lock up. And they would keep turning. And that allows you to control the car better. So car manufacturers, Ford, Chrysler, GM, they were making systems with anti-lock brakes, and they pretty much put them on every car. But there was a problem. The problem was that there was a sensor that was checking if the wheel was turning or not turning. And it was located underneath the car in the wheel well, so behind the tire, if you will. And what was happening is too many people were driving in puddles, mud, grass, dirt and debris, and all of that stuff would come up and it would stick on top of the sensor, and the sensor would get confused and it wouldn't know, sometimes it wouldn't work. So it wasn't a reliable system. So the Timken company, actually we had a number of engineers and salespeople that were working with designers. And they said, that's a need, that's a problem that we have. We have an unreliable system. So our technology people actually developed a sensor that they put inside the bearing. So it was fully enclosed. And it was really impervious to all the elements on the outside. So it was a much more reliable design. And we actually went about and we got patents for that. So it was very unique, and we were the first ones to do that. But then we had to go to the customers and explain to them why that was important, why it helped them, why it solved problems for them. And basically we put it in terms of you'll have less warranty claims, you'll have less customers that are unhappy with the performance of the products. And we're the only ones who have done this because we've created a patent. We're smart enough to create a patent on those things. So nobody else can do that, and we'd like you to buy it from us. And that turned into actually a fantastic program that we still leverage even today. This goes back a number of years ago now. So that's an example where we worked with customers, we found out there was a need, we figured out a way to satisfy that need, and then presented it back to them in a form of a product. So that's a perfect example of how marketing works. Marketing, as I just mentioned, right, is part of a much bigger puzzle. So if you think of a car again, there's not too many cars that can drive down the road without any tires. But if I gave it tires, there's not too many cars that could drive down the road without an engine. And if I gave it tires and an engine, I'd still have a problem if I didn't have a windshield or seat belts. So if you think about any business, there's a lot of pieces that all work together. And marketing would just be, or the function of marketing would just be one of those pieces. So in the example that I talked about, you know, the marketing folks were working with the sales folks, with the engineering folks, with the research designers, to integrate all of these things to come up with that sensor on the inside of the bearing that I just described. Now when we talk about all those different pieces, I gave some examples here of all the different areas that, at least in our business today, or my business today, marketing cuts across. I gave you examples where we work with sales, engineering, research, IT, information technology. We work very closely with IT to figure out how to take all the data that we have and analyze it properly. How do we put it in systems and capture it, look at it, store it for future use. Customer service, anybody who's talking with our customers. Supply chains, manufacturing, purchasing, how we make things, how we buy things, where we can source things, what's available outside the company that we can leverage. Product development, networks, schools. So you'd be surprised, we actually still work a lot with universities because we have problems just like any other business would have. And we work with universities like Penn State or MIT or any place, any university to work on programs and help us develop things that move our business forward. So the interesting thing about that now, if you start thinking about jobs that might be associated with marketing, and I'll give you my background. So when I graduated high school, I went to college for engineering. I graduated as a mechanical engineer. But when I graduated, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a design engineer, because there's many different kinds of engineering jobs. So I didn't want to be a designer, I didn't want to sit at a desk. And actually in those days it wasn't as much fun because we didn't even really have CAD. We were drawing with pencil and paper and rulers. I know I look young, but technology's changed a lot in just a few years. But I did want to leverage my engineering skills, and I wanted to work with people in engineering. So I found the Timken company. I've been working with Timken now for 28 years. I graduated out of college and came to Ohio to work for Timken. I wanted to work with engineers, and there was a job that was offered by the company, and it was for a sales engineer. And I thought that looked interesting. There was a lot of training involved in that, so I applied for the job and got it. And what I did is I would actually go out to customers and work with their engineers, design in bearing products that we manufactured. And then I'd also be responsible for working with the purchasing people and the buying people on allowing them to acquire those products or to buy those products. So it was actually pretty exciting. And for the first probably 8 years of my career, I did a lot of engineering, did a lot of sales and other business-related activities. So then I thought I'd like the business activities a lot, and I wanted to maybe branch into business activities. So I went back to school. I got my master's degree in business administration, and then moved into managerial functions that were related also to selling, customer service, corporate pricing. And then from there I moved into managing businesses, our rail business, our aerospace business, and then into marketing only recently, actually. But I guess the point I was trying to make with that is, if you think about going to college and you think about how all these groups are interconnected that I mentioned on the previous slide, there's some traditional ways to get into marketing. You could study marketing or study communications or study business as degrees, which would allow you careers that would open up opportunities in places like marketing. You could also look at things like math, psychology, economics. You'd be amazed at how much technical calculations are in marketing. Regression analysis, analyzation of data, conjoint analysis, where you're actually measuring things that are happening and then trying to draw a conclusion from that data set. It's very much like engineering. There's a lot of engineering discipline in there. I gave you my example of how I got into marketing through engineering. Information technology would be another way. So I guess the comment I really just wanted to make to the group is that all of the different disciplines are all interconnected. And if you think of something like marketing as an example, most people say, that's advertising and promotion. Most people don't realize that there's a ton of analytics and data analysis that goes in there. There's also marketing and advertising. There's also a lot of customer insights and customer interactions that go in there. So many, many disciplines could allow you to get into that space. Does that make sense, everyone? And that space really cuts across, and it won't be unique to marketing, right? I'm sure when Steve and Rob talk about some other functional areas, you're going to find that there's a lot of roads to take you to places. And that's actually a really good thing for people who are thinking about what they want to do in the future, because we don't always know. And actually, when you think you know, you get into it and you might find, it's not as fun as I thought it would be, and I want to try something else. And there's no dead-end streets there, right? There's always opportunities in pretty much all the functional areas that you can go down with whatever education you have, and then branch from there. So I'll leave you with that. Those were my comments on this, and then again, we'll open it up for questions at the end, which hopefully you can then get anything that you're thinking about answering.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul Hart.
Sorry, I just want to say this right off. As you're listening to these gentlemen give up their time to come and speak like you're giving up your time, you probably want to open up your book, take down a few notes, because this pertains to you. They're giving up time, like you're giving up time to be here for you. So make sure you use your pen or pencil, open up your book, and then scribble down a few of the notes that they're presenting to you.
Okay, well, next from the Timken Company, we're going to get to hear from Mr. Rob Arbogast, who his background is in human resources, and so I'll let you explain a little more.
Thank you. It's okay, you don't have to clap too much. Good afternoon. All right, so you're awake, and you know, one of the worst things in the world is actually having to follow a sales and marketing guy, right? What does he do for a living? He talks. He talks to everyone about nothing, but he talks, right? So I am Rob Arbogast. I'm in the HR world. Anyone ever hear of HR? Human resources, fantastic. So let's start out with a question. What is HR? What is it? Tell me. Human resources. What do you do in human resources? Go ahead. Come on, what do you do? Go ahead. Deal with employee problems. Yep, there you go. What else? Go ahead. Customers. What else? Yes? Middleman, and that is really true. Middleman between really the management and folks working and people who are having issues. So those are all things that you'll find in human resources. You know what? A lot of people say, hey, it's staffing, right? You go have to hire people. You guys ever apply for a job? Yeah, it's pain, right? You have to fill out all that paperwork. So it's staffing, it's recruiting, it's how you going to pay people, it's is Eric worth more than Steve? You know, it's doing things like that. It's also around talent. You guys go to training, right? You get a job, you got to figure out what to do. We got to figure out how to train you. That's what you do in human resources also. You got to figure out that stuff. You got to figure out when Eric came into the company, how did you train him to be a sales engineer? To train him to go out and see the customers. You also have to worry about development. You guys have probably read all about, you know, like leadership development and how you become a leader and how important that is. You know, a lot of people don't get that, so we get to train people on it. But you know what? These are just the tools. These are the things that we do to get the right results. The reality is, in today's world, human resources is not just hiring, firing, just people. It's about how you get business value. Every day, our job is to figure out how you create value. How do you create value for the business to go forward? How do you help the business to run better? And whether that's hiring somebody or figuring a new strategy to enable the business to implement things like sensor pack that Eric talked about. It is collaborating. I know that's of buzzwords, but it is about collaborating. How do you work together with that team? And I think Eric showed a whole bunch of different types of people that work in marketing. How do you work with all of those people to get what the company needs to succeed? It is around being a business partner. So it's not sitting in a meeting and just talking about what you need to do in human resources. It's sitting in a meeting talking about what do you need to do to get the results to support the business. We also do a tremendous amount around driving change. Change is absolutely essential. Every day you find change in an organization. Do you guys like change? Yeah. I saw that one. That was like a... Ugh. Some people love it, some people don't. But you know what? Change happens. constant. Our job is to help people figure out how to deal with that change. How do you move people forward? How do you get them to that new state of, that's really, really important. That's something that we get to play with. Problem solving. Do you guys ever take a class that had problem solving in it? Science, math, right? That's what we do a lot of. So you get Eric sitting there, you get Mr. Johnson next to him. I know this may be hard to believe, but they may not agree. Our job then is to help them work through those issues and come up to business results. How do you get that? How do you get a position where you can now move forward? That's what human resources does. We also work in a lot of strategy. I know that sounds, like high level, but it's important that we all can figure out where we're going, what we're trying to accomplish. And it's just not HR strategy, it's dealing with the business strategy. How do we all work together on that? We spend a lot of time working with our business partners to figure out where we're going, what do we need to do, not just about which person we need to hire or what type of people we need to hire, about where is the business going, and then how do we need to look at that in the future. So a lot of future-looking pieces. So, HR's changed a lot over the last few years, and what has also changed are the types of people that go into it. It used to be that anyone could just go into HR and figure out how to hire someone, right? Put an ad in the paper, people come in, you hire them, you're done. Well, it's changed a lot. So now we need, if you're going to be in the HR, we need people that are well educated. Education is,
Hold the mic higher.
higher up.
No, take your hand and move it up the mic. There you go.
How's that? Okay, so we need people that are well educated. And much as Eric said earlier, it is not just in business, it can be in engineering. Got a great person who works in our area, chemical engineer. Good thought process, good knowledge, that's what we're looking for. So well educated, and education is really just the entry into HR. We're really looking for people who are experienced. So as you go through your career, what we're looking for are people who of course know all the different areas in HR. And there are a lot of them, right? Compensation, we have people who have to work in the hiring side, we have the people that work in the labor relations side, we have people that work in the benefits side. So you have to have those experiences. But you also want people who have had other experiences. So, have you worked in manufacturing? Have we got someone who has been out in sales? Have we had someone who's been in the engineering side of the house and put products together? Have we found someone who maybe was in the finance or the IT sides? And all those experience sets are what makes somebody more valuable to the organization in the HR area, so that the solutions you come up with generate value versus just an HR solution. There's a piece here that people don't think about, but one of the things that we do look at are people who move, who physically pick up themselves and their family and move to another area. That way you get to know the cultures, you get to know how other people think and feel. That's very important when you're really trying to make decisions about people and how they work and how they operate. So for all of you, if you decide to go into HR, if you decide to go down that track, it's imperative that you look at the opportunities that are in front of you and go experience them. Don't say no, say yes. Even if you don't know if you want to do it, even if you look at it and go, boy, this is really scary, try it. And if you try it, you grow. And when you grow, that helps you then perform better. One of the things that all of us struggle with is keeping up to date. Technology changes, people change, right? When you start talking about an HR, we change almost daily. There seems to be a new law, a new regulation, a new educational something. So it is something that we all have to do. We have to keep up to date. And the last thing I'll say is that something extremely important for you to win in HR is to really come in with that committed and that desire to win. Because if you don't, you won't win, you won't stay on top, and you won't be able to hit the right value. I'm not gonna talk about all this, but Eric talked about his life at the Timken company and how he started. So yeah, I was actually a machinist, a tool and die maker, vocational. I figured out I wanted to do something different, so I got a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree. I was doing postmaster's work. I was broke, so I figured I needed to get a job. So I actually went to Timken. And what that did for me is it gave me the opportunity to do a ton of different things. And you'll find a lot of them aren't in the HR area. I got to work with Steve Johnson in manufacturing. I got to work with Eric Paulhart in the business side. I had the opportunity to travel internationally. I had the opportunity to open facilities, which is always a neat thing. I had the opportunity to close a lot of facilities. That's not as quite neat. But all of those experiences has helped me become a much better HR person. Another thing to remember is that your experience of what you have learned comes from the places that you have been. These guys have traveled a lot more than I have. But working for a company like Timken, having the ability to go out and to do things enabled me to go to areas of the world that I never thought possible. Whether it was China or Hong Kong before it became part of China, the Netherlands, UK, Romania. I would count it up the other day. I've been to more than 35 states on business in the US. All of those things help you become better at what you do. And I will tell you that the human resource field gives you that option and that ability. So, you guys ever heard of Marlington? Marlington, the high school, yeah, the school district. So that's where I'm from, right? About 20 miles outside of here. I lived in between a pig farm and a dairy farm. Okay, that's really picturesque, isn't it? I was a tool and die maker. I went to vocational machine trades in high school. I figured I needed to do something better than that, to try something different, so I went to Stark Technical College, or Stark State. I made it through that. I decided to go get a bachelor's and master's. I decided to work on a PhD, and I stopped at the dissertation. I got checked out on that. I had the opportunity then to work for Timken for 31 years, going on 32. When you pull all the pieces together, I had the opportunity recently to stand in front of about 125,000 people. It was streamed globally. It was with business leaders. It was on social media. It's on YouTube. And I'll tell you, from growing up in between a pig farm and a dairy farm to being able to do that, everyone can do it. Get your minds around it. Human resources was a great way to get there. A company like Timken was a great way to get there. And I'll tell you, and I'll challenge all of you can get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I really appreciate that. And next we have Dr. Stephen Johnson, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the world of science.
All right, see if I can manage this microphone here too. Right, a clicky thing.
Right here.
Ah, sneaky, sneaky. Thank you. All right, so I'm Steve Johnson. I head up research and development for the Timken company, which is a team of about 165 people. Scientists, okay. They said hold the microphone out the top, right? So I'm not going to go this way. So everything from scientists with PhDs down to the other end of the spectrum from an educational standpoint, just guys with high school graduation that are working in the trades areas. So I'll get to the presentation in a minute, but I think one of the things I want to make sure you take away from today You know, Einstein said, education is what remains after you've forgotten what you were taught in school. This is going to drive me nuts. So if you think about what Einstein was saying was, as you go through your life, you have a starting point, and that starting point will be whatever education you choose to get for yourselves, but it is just a starting point. Because as you heard from my two colleagues, your career can go in many, many different directions, regardless of where you start. Now, I'm passionate about engineering, and engineering is a discipline that can take you in many, many different directions. So Eric's an engineer, you saw his career, a lot of running businesses, sales, marketing, not what a lot of people would expect to find an engineer doing. But you may or may not be surprised to know if you join Timken as a sales associate at Timken, you have to be a degreed engineer. Because all of our sales folks are in fact degreed engineers, because we're a very technical company, you're selling a very technical product, we want you to be able to talk intelligently with the customer and not just point to the line item in the catalog and say you need one of these. So, engineering. For me, engineering has been an adventure, and it's been a career, and for me it's been a way to make a difference in the lives of many people, not only in terms of the products that the company I work for manufactures and puts out into the world around us, but as a senior leader now at Timken, with a large team of people working for me, I have the ability to influence their lives on a daily basis, both for the good and the not so good. So that's something that I think about a lot. Who was at Engineer for a Day at Timken? Okay, well, you guys, you're gonna, no answering the questions, because I stole shamelessly from the stuff I use for Engineer for a Day. So I'm gonna base what I'm gonna talk to you about around my desire to go fast. So who likes to go fast? Anyone got a need for speed? Yeah, so I have the high-powered motorcycles and still working on the Jag, or the, well, I got one Jag, but it's an old one. I want one of the new ones, the F-Type, right? But anyway. So you may or may not have heard of this project, which is going on in the UK right now. Anybody heard of Project Bloodhound? Okay, this is one of a handful of world land speed record attempts that are currently going on. The Americans have got a team, the Brits have got a team, I think the Australians have got a team together. They're all trying to break the land speed record. So when we think about speed, and I'm going to use what these guys are trying to do to point out to you all the different opportunities for engineers and how engineers are making this a possibility. And without engineers and all the different roles they play, things like this project wouldn't be able to be accomplished. So let's just think, without a machine, so a person on their own, how fast can somebody go by themselves, just under leg power? We've got 14 miles an hour, a bit quicker than that. 27 is getting really close. It's in between the two. Who knows who's the fastest man on the planet? Usain Bolt. And in 2009, he ran the 100 meters in, anybody know? 9.58 seconds, and he maxed out at just over 28 miles an hour. So that's the fastest man on the planet, 28 miles an hour. All right, now let's get some machinery on board. So how about a bicycle? So now we've got some mechanical advantage. How fast can we go on a bicycle? 50, it's very close. Yeah, it's about 48. There's a Brit, a guy called Sir Chris Hoy, he's 11 times world champion. He can go 48 miles an hour on a bicycle, and he's the fastest man on a bicycle, unassisted. There are people that have followed trains and other things that have gone faster than that, but unassisted, 48 miles an hour. And then you get into vehicles and cars, and then what this is about, which is the land speed record. So here's some stats, and I'll leave this presentation, so if anyone wants this, you can get a copy. There's nothing in here that's proprietary, and there's some interesting facts and figures in here. So there's Usain at the top, 28, there's Chris Hoy, 48, and you see all other objects that go very fast, machines that we have built as a civilization, right up to the fastest thing, which is the Saturn V rocket. In fact, I think the fastest thing we ever built was the Apollo capsule, the Apollo 11 or 12, I forget which one it was. But its journey to the moon was the fastest machine that the planet we've ever made, from the people on this planet at least. So this is the land speed record then. It started back in 1898. Difficult to read back there. I think the first one was something like 38 miles an hour was the first land speed record. But it was only 10 or 15 years after we'd invented the car that people said, how fast can we make these things go? because originally they were horseless carriages, right? So they weren't supposed to go much more than about 4 or 5 miles an hour, which is what your typical horse-drawn carriage went. But very quickly people figured out how to make them go faster. Up to where we are today, which is the land speed record, which actually broke the sound barrier. A guy called Andy Green in Thrust SSC, almost 20 years ago now, went supersonic. The only time man has ever gone supersonic in a ground-based vehicle. And now they're trying to go faster. So, hopefully Ken can show us a video. You have to go to screen mode for the link to work, I think. Come on YouTube, don't let me...
Silverado Truck Mart, where you can get great offers on select Silverado 1500s, the most awarded pickup.
I always worry about YouTube, you never know what else is going to...
Humans are obsessed with speed, really. And I think what's interesting is that the land speed record and speed records in general, I think, mirror our evolution in human development. So if you look back at all the developments we've made, a lot of it's been about speed, the technology. So fastest trains, fastest cars, fastest planes, even fastest spaceships. This is all mirror the fact that we're evolving all the time and technologically becoming more and more advanced. And that story is the story of speed.
The outright world land speed record is so iconic because it's the simplest, purest, oldest form of motorsport. The easiest thing to understand, it is simply driving a car faster than anyone else in history. When I was at university studying mathematics and learning to fly airplanes, I was watching Richard Noble attempting and then breaking the world land speed record in thrust 2.
The wonderful thing about that car was we achieved its design speed, which was 650 miles an hour. We peaked out at 650.88, so it was very satisfactory. And suddenly the data arrives, and we discover I was within 7 miles an hour of takeoff, so it was a lucky escape, but a new world record. As a result of the skills that we all acquired one way or another from the Thrust 2 project, we now realise that these projects, these skills could be applied to other projects.
In 1994, I was a serving Royal Air Force pilot, sitting at a main base in the UK, reading newspapers one Sunday, and I saw the public launch of a new world land speed record project, the Thrust supersonic car. One of several teams that was attempting the record during that period in the 1990s. This one was different. This one was twin engine. This one was going to be supersonic. And one line in that article said, Richard Noble, the project director, is looking for a driver. That became me.
Andy is an incredible character. He's got 3,000 hours of fast jet time. He's got first-class honours in mathematics. And we're very, very fortunate that he decided that he wanted to join us. And I think the great moment for all of us was the first time we broke the sound barrier. That was a fantastic thing. And you see this car coming up faster than any jet fighter you've ever seen, like a huge black locomotive airing down the desert. And I would be standing in the point of the desert with all the media and everybody else and watching all this. And it just reduced everybody down to prayer.
The thrust cockpit was between the two huge Spey engines. I was very much sitting down in the valley with only a narrow tunnel to look forward between the engines and down the 13-mile track that we were driving on. Conventional steering wheel, but model on an aircraft steering wheel with buttons on it for parachutes, radio, etc. Right foot controlled the throttle pedals with a total of 100,000 horsepower from the two Spey engines.
And this car comes out faster than any airplane you've ever seen in complete silence. And then suddenly it's alongside you and a huge double bang, ba-boom, like that. And a whirl of noise and just disappear.
It's because it was so powerful that 10 miles off the end of the track, the local town of Gerlach was experiencing what they thought was earthquakes. You can't hear your own shockwave, you can't hear your own sonic boom. That's what it's like in a jet fighter, that's also what it's like in a supersonic car, which unfortunately means that I'm the only person in history that has never had the opportunity to hear a car make a sonic boom.
Turn run 1.020.
We finished with thrust SSC, so there we are in the pub, having broken the sound barrier, and we all look at each other and say, we're never ever going to do this again.
I joined Bloodhound initially as a consultant, talking about the option for how we would build a faster car, possibly. We'd heard there was competition, the Australians, the Americans were both planning records, and it was very much still an informal conversation. It didn't become a serious conversation until we spoke to the British government and discovered a crying need for scientists and engineers. The biggest problem we've got is bringing science and technology to life for kids at school. Here was something the land speed record could do, and do brilliantly. All of a sudden, Bloodhound SSC and its education program had a purpose, and at that stage, when we looked at who was going to drive the car, I was initially trying to find a way of choosing the driver, and realised that the previous driver, the current record holder, would be the best qualified, whatever kind of test you did, and of course that was me. So I had a chat with the team, and here I am.
Well, of course, we had our first meeting with Ron Ayres, and Ron was absolutely appalled, and he said, how fast do you want to go, Richard? And I said, 1.5 times the speed of sound. And he said, no way was he going to be part of this. So a bit of horse trading went on, and we ended up with Mach 1.4 thousand miles an hour. A huge, massive project. Massive because basically what you're doing is creating the equivalent of a jet fighter. It will accelerate in the jet fighter. It goes 200 miles an hour faster than the Eurofighter at the same level, but 3,000 feet in the air is pretty thick, so you're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible on just about every single front. We've been joined by the Norwegians who are doing the rocket motor. The jet engine, of course, has come from the Ministry of Defence. And there's a very good chance we're going to be rolling out that car in about July next year.
So that's actually July this year. So the car has been built, and they will be starting test runs later on this year. And then they'll be going out to South Africa next year. They found a 15-mile stretch of dried lake beds somewhere in South Africa that they think is a good spot for the run. So hopefully good luck to those guys. Who knows what the speed of sound is?
The speed of which sound travels.
Correct. All right, so I was looking for a number actually, so good answer. Yeah, he knows what the speed of sound is. Anybody know what the actual value of the speed of sound is? At sea level, because that's a variable question. Well, it depends on atmospheric conditions and what have you, but it's somewhere around about 770 miles an hour. So that car that you saw run there went faster than that. Now they're attempting to go 1,000 miles an hour. So you think about the role that engineering plays. Whether you are an aerodynamicist, so maybe you've got a degree in mechanical engineering, and you've got fascinated by how flow works, whether it's liquids or air, then someone that pays attention to the aerodynamics on that vehicle would have come from an engineering or a pure science background. The fuel, so there's two engines in this thing. One's a jet engine, gas turbine engine. That gets it up to about 400 miles an hour, and then they light off a liquid-fueled rocket. Those two engines between them, 135,000 horsepower. Who's got a car? Do you know how many horsepower your car has? Well, I would guess, unless we've got any really souped up machines here, probably somewhere in the 200. If it's just a regular, Toyota Corolla or something like that, it's going to be a couple of hundred horsepower. This thing's got 135,000 horsepower. So chemical engineers working on the fuel, mechanical engineers, physicists working on aerodynamics, the actual structure of the machine. How do you stop this thing from flying? As I said, it's faster than most fast jets. It wants to take off. It doesn't want to stay on the ground. So that's one of the biggest challenges they have, is how to keep the thing on the ground. So a lot of science, a lot of engineering. So we'll leave Project Bloodhound, and I'll just wrap up by saying from my standpoint, if you have a strong mathematical background, an interest in fundamental science, then there is a whole plethora of technical careers that can open up to you if you choose to go into a technical degree program of some sort. And as I said before, you know, the degree that you get is just a starting point. Where your career takes you after that is up to you. I would also strongly encourage you to consider a technical career, because I have 5 openings that he's not been able to fill for me yet in HR, looking for technical people at all levels. Junior engineer to work on thermal treatment, so this is a manufacturing process. We take steel and we bake it in an oven to change its mechanical properties. That changes how our products perform. The science behind that, I'm looking for an engineer at a sort of entry level to come in and work on those types of projects. Position's been open 7 months. Interviewed a whole bunch of people. Nobody has even close to the right background. So, as I look at my group today, there's a bunch of people like me, lots of grey hair, you know, that over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be retiring. And I am really concerned, not only for Timken, but for the United States. Where is this next generation of technical people coming from that is going to continue to fuel the innovation and what is ultimately the backbone of the heart of the economy of the United States, which is manufacturing? Huge gap. So you've got companies now starting apprenticeship programs to encourage students to go into vocational school. That's where I started. I've been with Timken 40 years, but like Rob, I started as a toolmaker, an apprentice toolmaker. But I started that because, well, I hated high school, wanted to get out at the earliest opportunity, which in England you can legally do that at 16 without being labelled a dropout. And I went to vocational school, but with Timken. So I joined Timken at the age of 16 on an apprenticeship program. Part of the deal was, we train you during the day how to do machining and what have you, and then you go to school at night and you get an associate's degree. So by the time I was 18, I got an associate's degree, and so this was my plan. I mean, when I left, just because I hated high school, that was a whole different story, but my plan was get an apprenticeship and get my education whilst working. So I got my associate's degree, that got me onto a bachelor's degree program, did my bachelor's degree, and then I actually went on to finish my doctorate. So I got a PhD. And then my career, as Rob said, you know, my career at Timken has really taken me from starting on the shop floor, working in the tool room. I went into shop floor supervision, so I was a manager very early in my career, and I really enjoyed that. I like working with people. But I also realized the environment I was in, technology was moving so fast that if I stayed there, that was basically going to be my career. I would have been in management for the whole of my career, and at 22 years old, I wasn't ready to make that decision. So I actually jumped ship, and I was fortunate that I was at British Timken site we used to have in the UK, and we had a large research group, and they were looking for project engineers. So I moved into the research area, and that's what allowed me to get my PhD doing research, and then from there gradually rose up through the research ranks. That's what brought me to the States 20 years ago on the infamous temporary assignment, and I've been here ever since. And then whilst I've been in the States, I've had 9 years in our aerospace business. Initially in an operational role, so out in the manufacturing plant, but then I moved into product development and had 3 really fun years working with the Air Force and Pratt & Whitney, developing mechanical systems for the F-135 engine, which is the engine that goes in the Joint Strike Fighter, latest generation fighter aircraft. And then in 2006, I came back to Canton as one of the directors at our research and development area, and I've had various roles since I've been back to the one I have today, which is really heading up the whole R&D group. So as I said, again, I'll close just by saying there's a huge need for people interested in technology with technical backgrounds that are going to support manufacturing, science and technology in the United States going forwards. And that's at all levels. I can't hire, you know, guys to run machines out in the machine shop. So those of you, if there's anyone here that's interested in vocational school, you know, I told my kids, I said, hey, if you want a hands-on career, you could do a lot worse than becoming a toolmaker, because nobody, hardly anywhere, is going into that profession. There is going to be a need for toolmakers in the future. So I'll stop there because I could go on for hours, and these guys were good enough to give me a few extra minutes. So I think we're going to open it up to Q&A now, Debbie.
Yes. so much for that, Steve. Like speakers come back up, and we're going to have a panel, and this is your opportunity from our guests that have many years of experience with the Timken company, and this is your opportunity to think about your careers and what questions you may have. And if I could ask the guests to focus on maybe some project engineering or the importance of teamwork in your positions.
How many people is a part of your team?
I didn't get the question. I can't sit. Do we have to sit down? Can we stand up? Yeah, I'm going to stand up. You can sit down if you want, Rob, but I'm standing up.
How many people? How many people are on your working team?
So my team's 165. How many you got, Rob?
So I have a very small team. I have actually two pieces. I have a direct and an indirect team. My direct team is 4-ish. I think it's actually 4.75 because I have fractions of people. And then my indirect team is a little over 20.
So like Rob, I also have direct team, and then there's a lot of matrix teams outside the United States that we work very closely with. So my direct team is 30 people, and then if you go outside the US for indirects, it's upwards of 50 to 60.
Yeah, as Eric said, Timken is a very matrixed organization. So if you look at people around the world, yeah, everyone reports to somebody, right? So everybody has a boss, but who you report to and who you actually work with and work for can be very, very different, right? Because of the matrix nature of the organization that we have around the planet. So it's really not about just the number of people that work for you. It's really about the influence and the responsibility that you have. So when you look at senior leadership, you will find huge variations, because you look at the guy that's in charge of manufacturing, well, he's got like 16,500 people work for him. But then Eric's really about the future in terms of where we're going as a company, so that's a very responsible position. I'm trying to make sure that we're developing the technologies that we're going to need in the future to allow us to innovate new products and continue to be successful. And then this guy's just trying to keep us all in line.
And I'm trying to find the right people to replace it.
Not possible. All right, come on, more questions. Let's have some more questions. Yes.
Are there any words of advice you have for anybody going into like the entrepreneurship field, or any words of wisdom?
Great question. So, I am not an entrepreneur. I like to think of myself as an innovator. I've got a few patents. From an entrepreneur standpoint, I think the good news today is there's a lot of resources available. So I'm a fan of Kickstarter. Anybody do Kickstarters? Yeah, I got one. Yeah, so this is a crowdsourcing means of funding an idea or a project. You know, one of the challenges for entrepreneurs in the past was always, I've got a great idea, but you always need money, resources to launch any new idea. So I think Kickstarter and crowdsource funding is one opportunity that exists now that's not existed previously.
So my daughter just started her own small business. She's down in Greenville, South Carolina. She's in the communications area. So she went to Ohio U, she went to Clemson, she worked for a company. She thought, I'm going to go out on my own, I'm going to try that. My advice to you is you have to get up to speed on many different things. And so just as we all talk about where we've done different things in our careers, so she's had to become versed in what an LLC is, right? How do you legally set it up? She's had to become versed in how do you keep track of the money? How do you pay your taxes? How do you distribute that money back to herself legally so that she doesn't get in trouble? She has to worry about how does she market herself? She has to worry about, her PC, what happens if it breaks? So how do I start having a fund to replace my PC? So from the entrepreneurial side of going out and starting your business, you have to ask people. There are many agencies to go talk to, like SCORE, et cetera, that will help you set up and get going. And it is all around being driven, reading, understanding, and setting your business plan so that you can accomplish it. It's really been interesting to watch her do it, because much like Steve, I have not gone down that road. Really a lot of work, but she's very, I'll say, gratified with what she's done with it. And by the way, she's actually working on STEM projects, which is science, of course.
So I'll play more of the HR kind of role right now. It's always easy to do somebody else's job. The only comments, so great comments from both Steve and Rob. I guess the only comments I will add to that, because marketing, even what we do today, is a little bit what I would call entrepreneurial, right? We try to figure out what people might want or need, and then we have to go over here and try to create it. And the only comments I will make from an advice standpoint is do not be afraid to fail, right? Because if you're not making mistakes, it's very difficult to learn. So you always want to make mistakes. Now, you try not to make the same mistakes twice. That's the caveat with that. And then you also try to mitigate the outcome of a mistake. And the way that you do that is think about what all the possible outcomes are, and then try to put plans in place that will lessen the effects of any of those negative outcomes. All right? And then the only other comments that I'll throw out there for that is, you want to think about where you're trying to get to, but you need to start small, right? And actually take it one step at a time and try to carve it up into a small enough chunk that you can try something and then reflect on it and say, what did I learn? Did it work well? If it worked well, let's move faster in that direction. If it didn't work well, then why? What does that mean to where we're trying to get to? How do we change whatever it is we're doing to improve our outcome? And then take another step forward, right? And just keep going until you get to a point where you know you have to stop because it's not going to work. And again, don't be afraid of those things. The sooner you get to those points, and it happens to everybody, the better off you are. And the more you learn on that journey, the better off you'll be for the next thing that you try and the next thing that you try. So it's a general statement, but I think they're very important for people to keep thinking about as you do your job each and every day.
Need, value, conditions. Go on over here. I don't know, this is quite a big room. I like to think I don't need a microphone either, but...
Mr. Johnson, you spoke to the importance of young engineers in the future of the States. As experts in your respective fields, who are our international competitors and how do they measure up?
Great question. So, my 40 years with Timken, I have seen a huge change. We just talked about a Timken company. So when I joined Timken, not to bore you with the details of the products we make, but anybody know what a bearing is? Right, anti-friction device, right? Tries to help to reduce the amount of friction involved in motion. So when I joined Timken, Timken patented one of the early designs of the tapered roller bearing, which was used extensively in machines and vehicles, still is today. But back in the 70s, when I joined Timken, if you wanted to buy a tapered roller bearing, and you wanted a reasonably good tapered roller bearing, the whole planning it went to the Timken company. That's not the case today. So today, I would still argue, if you want to buy the best tapered roller bearing on the planet, you still go to Timken today. But there's lots of other places I can go now to get reasonably good tapered roller bearings. And in many cases, reasonably good is good enough, right? So this is back to that need, value, and conditions. So it's something to think about from an entrepreneur standpoint. Any opportunity, you can break it down into those three elements. Is there a need? What's my value? Because if there's no value, no one's going to pay for it. And are the conditions right for this opportunity that I'm thinking about? So the competitive landscape today is very challenging. I like to think from our standpoint, we have some technologies that others have yet to figure out, but lots of people are working on those, so we have to continue to work to try and stay one step ahead of the competition. But the Japanese, the Europeans, now the Chinese, lots of emerging competitors in Asia, and the fact that we have continued to make our products perform better and better and better, so that, you know, 40 years ago, something that was an also-ran really wasn't good enough. You know, you put one of these also-ran tapered roller bearings on a vehicle and it didn't get out of warranty. The wheel bearing would fail after 20,000 miles, and now Ford's really upset, or GM's really upset, because they've got a 36,000 mile warranty. Well, those days are long since gone. We can make wheel bearings that go over 1 million miles now. Well, that's that value question. No one's going to pay a premium for a wheel bearing that goes 1 million miles because your average car is done after a couple of 100,000. Right? So yes, the competitive landscape is very intense. It's not going to get any better from our standpoint, but we understand what it is we're trying to do. We have a strategy as a company to continue to evolve our products, and Eric's out looking for new opportunities where our differentiated offering can continue to add value, and moving forwards in that manner is how we'll continue to sustain the Timken company going forwards.
So Steve talked about the hard side. So these two guys' life is to figure out how to make mine miserable, right? So Steve's thinking about new and different things, new technologies. Eric is figuring out where's the new things that we need to be competitive with. Comes then to here where you get the right people to be able to enable that. And it is now a global place. We try to hire people all over. And so I remember not all that long ago, I was told, you're going to France, you're going to hire somebody for this job, and you're not coming home until you do. And it's real. If that's where the expertise is, that's where you're going to go. That's what you want. So it is competitive, and you have to remember that we as a company will go wherever we need to go to get the talent that is the best. So be the best. You study hard, you keep your nose, if you go to the grindstone, you'll work through it, you become well known about it, and that's what we're looking for, that experienced, well-rounded individual. And we work very hard to find them. And I will tell you, you find them all over the world. And that's what we do. And it's the only way we're going to be able to support these guys in business. So remember, you're not just competing with the person next to you. You're competing with the person that's sitting in the UK, that's sitting in France, that's sitting in China and India. And that whole group is now what we deal with to find the right people to support the business. Okay.
I just want to echo a couple of those comments because it's a great question actually, and that's something that has changed considerably and will continue to change going forward. So if you just think back to your parents, right, when your parents were your age, there wasn't a time when you could buy things on the internet.
Hey, that's you.
That is me, yes. The internet did not exist, right? So if you think about it from a professional standpoint in business, most businesses were what we would call local for local. So even community-based, correct, or region-based. So if you were a big manufacturer or if you were a small bakery on the corner, you serviced your local regions. So now you fast forward, just 20 years, it's not that long. And now today, somebody could be sitting on the other side of the world, we'll just pick China as an example, in their garage, making a widget and selling it on the internet that's competing with you in your local neighborhood. That's a dramatic change, right? And then a lot of people will say, yeah, but it's from China, it's a bunch of junk, it's not real. It's fake stuff, it won't last. And I will tell you that in the early 1980s, that's what everybody in this country would have been saying about Japan. And Japan spent a lot of money and a lot of energy making sure that they could manufacture products that were high quality, that were very consistent. And now when you look across, just go outside in the parking lots and look at what kind of cars are made. Look at any kind of electronic widget that you have, whether it's TV screens, projectors, things like that, right? It's a formidable force. So you would say, geez, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff maybe coming out of third world countries that's not really good. And I'll guarantee you within the next 10 years, when you're talking to somebody, they're going to be the competitors that are beating on your door the hardest. They're going to be the people that you're facing as the toughest competition. So do not underestimate evolution and how people evolve. And then to Rob's point, which is a fantastic one, right? Personally, you're now not only competing with people in, I'll even say the state of Ohio, right? Because when you go on to a university or a college, you're going to have kids your same age that are coming from all over the world, right? And everybody's competing for those things, right? Because at the end of the day, when we do go look to hire, because there's such a mass of students that come out nowadays, when you look to hire, grades are important. And you'll be competing with people that study 10 hours a day. And that might not be the way that you typically do it in the US, right, as a standard kind of a thing. But when you go to other countries, that is the standard, right? They are putting their children and saying, hey, you're going to not go out and play ball or you know, go hang around or something like that. You're going to sit there and study. So it's a different world, right? And you cannot underestimate that stuff. It is highly competitive, and it will continue to be competitive because it's so connected, right? And it's so transparent. So now you can see all these things real time, right in front of your face, and it will just keep being that way. So it's a great question to ask, and it's something that you guys all have to take very seriously as you think about going forward.
To reinforce my point about the need for technical people, the last 5 or 6 positions I have filled have all required me, through Rob, to sponsor these associates in the US, because none of them were US nationals. They were all either Chinese or Indians. So you're competing globally. But there's an opportunity there as well, right? Because there's a significant cost in sponsoring those associates, those individuals, to stay here in the United States and make a life here. And there's also big challenges for me, because part of my group works on stuff that is export controlled, military products and what have you. So there are regulations around, you know, who can be exposed to that technology and who can't. And if you're not a US citizen, you can't be exposed to that technology. So even these associates that I'm hiring, you know, I have to make sure there are firewalls so that they can't, you know, get their hands on any information which is they're regulated not to have. So just reinforces the point on the opportunity that exists for you guys, you know, as Americans, if you choose to go you know, down a technical path. Question?
Why travel to find certain employees? Why not just stay in the United States to find somebody?
So the question was, why travel to find employees? Why not just stay here in the United States to find them? I would love to be able to do that. The 6 or 7 positions that I filled recently have been advertised extensively. And we did interview some Americans. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, the folks that we found, the folks that applied for the positions, you know, weren't even close to being the same caliber. And in many cases, we got very, very few applications from, you know, from domestic students. Most of the applications were coming from foreign national students.
It is, let's just go back to the basics, supply and demand, right? I'll tell you, the supply has dropped off on a lot of these very technical positions. And so it is a wonderful area, and I look at these 2 engineers and say, you know, they went down a path that is absolutely in demand. And good engineers are like gold. And with some deep experience like Steve was looking for is also gold. So we would love to be able to hire, because actually it's more cost effective to hire someone in the US than to bring somebody else in. But it is finding those folks, and I'll tell you, this is an opportunity. You know, these STEM programs that are out there are fantastic. It's there for a reason. Steve mentioned innovation. We need people to help drive that innovation, and look at that as a definite opportunity for y'all.
Just one quick comment. So, I mean, don't think that 99% of the people that are at the Timken company are foreign nationals or anything like that, right? I think the point of the conversation is your peer group, what used to be Canton, Ohio, the state of Ohio, your peer group is now the world. And because every company that you want to go work for competes globally, those companies have to attract the most talented people in the world. Whether they're in the United States, in Europe, in China, Japan, it doesn't really matter. You want to acquire the best talent in the world. So your goal, again, is to always be in that top quartile of talented people, right? To always be thinking, to always be working hard, to always be trying to improve your your mindset, your education, because your peer group is now globally. And honestly, I think it's a bigger challenge for everyone, right? My peer group when I was your age was a lot smaller. Yours is now the world, but that's the reality.
Back here, please.
So my major is psychology, but I've been recently thinking about changing to business or at least minoring in business. How could I incorporate both psychology and business?
Well, a psychologist with a business background, that'd be pretty scary. That's you, isn't it? Well, you're the psychologist.
Psychology, if you think about it, you have the whole issue of the study of people, right? How people process, how people think. And people tend to think about that as like that clinical side, right? Looking at people and, you know, what's your issue and how do we fix it? It's really not that. It's about how do you take an organization and enable it to do more? How do you take an organization and bring the person and the business together to create greater value? Huge opportunities. So we do hire psychologists. We actually have recently hired an IO psychologist who helps us with testing, measurement, understanding, things like attitude surveys, right? What is the attitude? What's the positioning of the organization, the people in it? What's the morale of the organization, and then what do you do with it? It's a big, big area. And when you combine the psychology side and the business side, then you can get value. It's better than just having only one. So I think it's really though I'm not directing you what to do, okay, that's all my disclaimer. It really becomes a powerful piece when you can have both of those. The other thing I'll say is that I think it's neat when we take the psychology folks and actually put them out in the business to do, like Steve mentioned earlier, supervising. All of a sudden it puts that reality piece onto the education, and then it makes you better down the road when you come up with other solutions. Okay. Gee, I thought I was getting a little clap here.
Are there any main projects, technologies, or innovations the Timken company is working on at the moment to keep one step ahead against the emerging competitors?
Yeah, without giving away any trade secrets. So if you look at trends going on in the world around us, obviously energy and the way in which this planet is consuming energy is a major concern as we move towards a projected 9 billion people on the planet by 2050. That's something you guys are going to have to deal with. I may or may not have to deal with that. I mean, I'll be 91, holy smoke. So, the trend that drives then, from a engineering standpoint, is how do we make things more efficient? How do we make things do the same job that we need them to do, but consume less energy along the way? So if you think about any machine, you know, the reason Henry Timken, when he started the Timken company in 1899, he said, the man that can do something to reduce friction will deliver something of great value to the world. Because even back then, he realized that, you know, friction was a major roadblock to all these mechanical systems that people were developing. And if you look at where a lot of the energy goes today, in a processing plant of some sort, doesn't matter whether you're grinding of aggregate to make cement, melting and rolling steel, you know, there's a lot of machinery involved in doing that, and that machinery will have what we call parasitic loss. So before it does any real work, just to turn the machine over takes energy. And so one of the things we're working on is how do you change fundamentally the way that things like rolling element bearings, which is what we make, how they perform, so that you can do the same job but with lesser energy. So we have some innovations around product geometry and different lubricants and coatings and stuff like that. So efficiency is one of these major drivers. And this is really where Eric and I work very, very closely together, because he's the one that's really charged with finding these trends, understanding these trends that are going on in the world around us, and then sorting through all of that to say, okay, if you're a business like Timken, with the strategy that we have around the products and services that we make and deliver to our customers, how do these trends that we see going on in the world around us, where is the opportunity for us, the Timken company, within these trends? For example, high efficiency products would clearly be one opportunity where there's a need, there's a value out there, and the conditions are right at this time.
So the only thing I'll add to Steve's comments is when we talk about technologies, there are a ton of technologies, right? There's things that are incremental improvements to do things better, faster, quicker from a product standpoint. And there's also then just total innovations that you can do things you couldn't do in the past. But I would like you to think about beyond that. So for any business to be successful, it's not just what science and technology we can bring in the form of a hard product or something that you think about. Things that we're actually working on today, each and every day, believe it or not, is when a customer comes to us and says, I want to buy something from you. Would you please give me a quotation? Tell me how much it would cost. Tell me when I could get it. We actually work on things to speed up that process so that I can give you an answer not in one day, but in 10 minutes. And those become competitive advantages in the marketplace. So all of the things, it's not just the hard products that we sell, but it's all of the processes that we use to do our day-to-day efforts, right? We look at all those things top to bottom. So you get to apply technology because now there's different computer capabilities or information technologies available. We apply them to them. Our HR system invested millions of dollars into a system that now looks at all of our people globally. We can tell what training they have. We can give people training through those systems. So it's things like that we use to make ourselves more efficient and more effective in the eyes of the customer.
All right, an enthusiastic question. Excellent.
Well, you said that there's a lot of people that applied for the job, but they weren't close to qualifying for it. So what are you guys looking for, like specific, like a certain level of education?
Yeah, so what are we looking for specifically? That obviously varies very much position by position, but just to give you a couple of examples. So take my junior heat treat engineer that I'm looking for. So the advertisement that we posted said, wanted somebody with an appropriate technical degree, ideally material science, maybe chemistry, potentially mechanical engineering, but with about 5 years industrial experience that have been working on either in an operational environment or on the development of thermal treatment processes. So that's what lots of industries use thermal treatment. So you would expect that there's all sorts of people around there that would like to come and live in Canton, Ohio, at the Timken company. One of the challenges we have today, and Rob can talk into this a lot more than I can, but when you post these jobs out on the internet, we get 1,000 applications, just like that. And typically 990 of them aren't even worth looking at. So you have to sift through all of that. When we got down to the ones that were worth looking at, they were either people that we couldn't hire because they were from parts of the world where they had no means of coming to work in the US, because that's the other thing, this is global now, right? So we have people all over the planet applying for jobs here in Canton, Ohio. You probably didn't know where Canton, Ohio is. So you have to sift through all of that. So by the time you do all of that and you look at who are the real candidates, you realize you're only looking at maybe 5 or 6 people with the right degree, with the sort of experience we were looking for, that want to come and work in Canton, Ohio. And we have yet to fill that position because we haven't really found anybody. So part of the reason I'm here today, and really pleased that we were able to connect with Degby and the group that is sort of counseling you and bringing this together, is because I see a real opportunity here, is that I can connect with some of you that have interests in the types of careers that could find value at Timken, and that we can start working together a little earlier on in your education career and identify opportunities for you to come and work at the Timken company. It's not going to solve my immediate problem, that I can't find my heat treat engineer today, but it will potentially help solve problems 3, 4, 5 years down the road as you guys are graduating at a college that will have worked with you, you'll have got an education that's appropriate for what we're looking for, as well as something that interests you, and then we'll be able to offer you a full-time position. And just to give you a sense, I mean, starting salaries for graduate engineer or undergraduate engineer starting in my group, depends on the discipline, but it's usually around $55,000 to $60,000. That's starting salary, straight out of college. Maybe you've got a couple of internships. And then, you know, 6 figures is very easily attainable as you grow in experience. So lots of opportunity out there.
So Steve said you'll get 1,000 resumes in, and that is true. And we actually sort through those. So I'm looking at the board over here. It says Timken Trojans. We're the Timken company. So you send us a cover letter that says, I want to work at Timken, and it's spelled T-I-M-K-I-N. And you go, man, this person's really got it brilliant, but they can't figure out what company they just applied to. Gone, right? Or you read their cover letter, and it says, hey guys, I want to get a job here. Gone, right? So the one thing I'll tell you is you can be the best qualified person in the world, but take the time to be thoughtful about what you do. Take the time to look up the company. We'll have people come in and interview, and you literally sit down with them, and they won't even know what we do. In today's world with the net, heck, you can do that in about 2 minutes, right? You can figure out how big we are, where we're located, what we make. So the point of what Steve looks for is really usually some really weird people. No, they're really very specific. But we hire a lot of folks in customer service, in supply chain, in procurement, in all sorts of areas. And there are many people available, but take the time to think about what you're doing. Read the ad, read what you submit, and then when you do make it, be prepared to come in and actually answer questions and ask questions, because you have to set yourself apart from the other 1,000 people that are in that stack. I know it sounds simple, and I know your teachers are probably telling you that, but it is so real. Take the time and do it right. Spell the company name right, for goodness sake.
So the only thing I would maybe add to those 2 comments, which are really good comments, for yourself, especially now and forever in your career. So I'll say from this point going forward, put yourself in a position where you can have some good experiences, right? Because at the end of the day, those experiences are what will make you the person that any company would want to hire. And I'm not just talking about the hard skills, right? So the easy ones are, I got an A in math, I got an A in science, right? I understand how to do this, I've done the technical stuff. But there's softer skills and competencies that are just as important, especially when we talk about, you know, we're connected around the world, we're working with people around the world. Diversity of thought, embracing diversity of thought, respecting your peers, right? That means that if you're sitting in a class and you don't understand something, if you don't ask a question, you've just unfortunately shorted yourself from having a valuable experience. Because you could have had an experience that was a learning opportunity that maybe would have triggered another thought that would have got you to do something else in the future that would help you out. If somebody's saying something to you and trying to help you, you need to understand if they have more knowledge in that area, maybe they're a good resource. Maybe I need to use them. Maybe I need to leverage them, and that will help build that experience for you to then do something else, right? We talked a little bit about entrepreneurialism just a few moments ago, and you think about good entrepreneurs, who are they? Those are the people that, you know, they're self-starters, they're always engaged, they're thinking about things constantly, and they're opening up their minds to stuff. They fail, most entrepreneurs fail more times than they succeed, right? But they're willing to have that experience because that experience then makes them a better person. So I would encourage you all, you know, to consciously think about that stuff. The next time you find yourself not knowing something and not asking a question, really force yourself to ask a question, right? You'd be amazed at how many other people around you don't know that answer either, but they're not willing to ask. Now, if you're willing to ask, you will have a much better experience. And you will put yourself in a position that then when you are interviewing with companies or you are filling out resumes or doing anything, you can capture those experiences. And that's really what people want to see. People want to know that you would be a great, valuable asset to come into this organization, not only because you can can teach other people or work with other people or do your job, but that you can learn more, you can grow with the company, you can adapt to all the changes that will come that we don't even know about today. That's exactly what you're going to be thinking about.
More questions? Oh, so I get the mic and I didn't.
Any other questions?
Okay, this is more like a curiosity question. But with Project Bloodhound, he said the car can go as fast as a jet. What makes it stay on the ground?
It's not someone as light as him.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Aerodynamics, basically. So you have to develop something that's called ground effect. So you have to have just typically the way, if you know the way an airplane flies, if you've got a wing, the top of the wing, so the air traveling over the top of the wing has to go further than the air traveling under the wing because of the way the wing's shaped. That's the fundamental basis of flight. Because Bernoulli figured out that when air travels faster, the pressure drops. So by forcing the air to go over the wing, it has to travel faster to meet up with itself at the trailing edge of the wing. So as it goes faster, the pressure drops, and when the pressure drops, that means there's a force on the underside of the wing that's pushing the wing up. That's the basis of flight. That's what this car wants to do. So what they have to figure out, the aerodynamics is extremely important, because this car will want to fly unless they get it right and force it to stick on the ground. So Debbie's waiting with the hook. Closing comment from me. Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed this. It's been fun talking to you guys. The reason I'm here giving up my Sunday afternoon is because you can probably tell I'm pretty passionate about this stuff, science and technology, because I made America my home 20 years ago. I'm now a naturalized American. I don't want to have happen in America what's already happened in the UK, where I'm from. If you look at the United Kingdom today, it used to be a manufacturing powerhouse. Back in the 1930s, 1940s, there's very little manufacturing worth talking about left in the UK anymore. There's no electronics industry, there's no real car industry left anymore, there's no motorcycle industry. You know, it's a service economy. The States is headed down a similar path. You know, if you go back to what made this country great in recent times, come out of World War II, and you know, in the 60s we had the space race. And you had a whole generation of students like you that back in the 60s said, man, we got to get on board with this. This is just, you know, fabulous and the future of the country. And whole generations, complete high school classes, were going to college to study math, science. And that gave us the generation of engineers that are now retiring. The challenge is we haven't developed that passion and that interest in you guys so that you do what your peers did all that time ago and said, I'm going to go into a technical career, because there's a good career for me and I can make a difference. Remember my opening slide. An adventure, a career, a way to make a difference. So I'll close with one last comment. For any of you that are thinking technical careers, think about what we were just talking about, this thing, right? Project Bloodhound. Math is the foundation of science. So math and physics, but particularly math. And math is increasingly important, and I see this. I mean, the math that some of the guys that work for me are doing now, I couldn't do. I'd have to go back to college, you know. But you think about the world that we're living in, the world that we're moving into, the way these guys will be successful is because they will have spent an inordinate amount of time modeling the performance of this car. Everything from the strength of the structure, they probably used a technique called FEA, finite element analysis. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, but it's a mathematical technique that allows you to model structures in 3 dimensions. They'll have done FEA, they'll have done something called computational fluid dynamics, which is how you model the flow of liquids in air. So they've been using CFD to model the aerodynamics. They'll have been doing materials modeling and all sorts of modeling. So math is the basis of virtual simulation. And so that's why math is becoming increasingly, math has always been a foundation for any technical career. But if I can leave you with one thing, if you're considering a technical career, really push the math. Because if you can get beyond your peers with that mathematical understanding, that within itself will open up huge opportunities for you. So that's enough from me.
So nothing against engineering, but they're not the only ones that use math. In my area, we do a tremendous amount of analytic work. The foundation of analytics, mathematics, the understanding of what those analytics tell you is how you can start to make decisions and actions around it. So even though Steve probably chagrins when I say this, you know, mathematics and HR are like this. Because when you get the data, you have to understand what it means. You have to be able to use it. You have to. And for folks coming out of school that haven't taken the time to learn what it means, then they are far behind. So even in my area, Steve, mathematics is really important.
Yeah, data analytics. 90% of the data on the internet was created in the last couple of years, and how do you analyze it? There's opportunities.
I thought you said you were done. Again, great comments, right? And if you remember the third slide I showed for marketing, one of the avenues to get in would have been a math degree or something like that, because again, to Steve's point, there's a lot of data analytics out there. The only comments that I will make, again, I thank you all for taking time. I congratulate the group, because you know what we've been talking about is what do you need to do to be successful, where do you want to go next, and think about it. You're taking time out of your Sunday, prioritizing that to be important. And I would argue that you have a very high probability of being successful, right? Because you're taking the effort to do those things. And that's, for me, probably the most exciting thing to come here and try to share with you all of the mistakes that I've done in my past, right? That would be the best thing to do. But you know, don't be afraid of anything. When you listen to the three of us talk, there's a lot of different ways to get to places. So just start with what you think you love right now and drive it. And then as you get farther down that road, you'll figure out if you like it more or like it less or like something else. And for most cases, you can usually leverage where you've come from to get to a new place to go to. Right? And the only last comment I would tell you is if you love it, you will be successful at it, trust me. I mean, my experience is I've only worked for one company, but I've worked many different jobs. And when you love what you're doing, you can be highly successful at it. So congratulations to all you guys, and thank you.
I truly want to thank the three of you. I know that they travel the world and work so many hours, and they took their Sunday to spend with us. So I really want the group to have a full appreciation of their time as well. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Now go enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon. Okay, next, Mrs. Bruner would like to talk to you about some of the new internet usages over at the START campus. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Myers. There's a couple of things I think all of you know, but some of you have taken advantage of it, and some of you I haven't seen. I see we have some regulars over at our CampCast Student Center, so I'm enjoying that. I'm happy that everybody's doing that, the ones that are. But if you don't know, we're located in the satellite building now on the second level. If you know where Mrs. Phillips' room is, I'm right across from the area where her room is. You can come over there. It's a nice, quiet area. Mr. Venturella, he's really spoiling you guys. He decided that we should have a Keurig in there and a popcorn maker. So we haven't really fired up that popcorn maker. So come on, guys, somebody come over there so we can get the popcorn maker going. That's just one of the fun things. But it's a nice, quiet spot to study. And you can, if you have any work you need to print out, I've had several students print out like a report. If they had to turn in something, they can come over and I'll get your computer set up. We have Wi-Fi, so it's easy for you to access the internet. I'm trying to think of anything else that, it's a nice area. Just come and take advantage of it. If you're a camp student, which all of you are here, and CAS students too. So I know some of you are double here, so you know you have those advantages. But if I'm going to send a note out to our other CAS students so they all know too. My hours over there are, I'm only part-time really, but I'm here all the time. But my hours over in the satellite building is from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. It's only Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I haven't posted on the door, but if you want to write it down somewhere so you'll remember what times I'm there, so you don't come over and you think I'm there and I'm not. But I do, sometimes I go in my office, and if you see me on Mondays or Fridays, come on in. You can use the room as well. Some of you brought your portfolios. I appreciate you doing that. Our new students, you guys are going to get those next month. We're going to have a new student orientation. So we'll pass out those and some other nice gift items for you. I think Mr. Morocco, do you have anything? Because I'll just go on in.
For the newcomers, I run the engineering section of camp, and hope some of you are interested in engineering. A special question, how are the laptops working out? Mr. V is not here today, and he regrets that, but comments on the laptop? Are they replying to emails? Mr. Minarella wants to know.
I've seen several people replying back for emails, but I would like to see more of you doing that. I see it come on through your iPhone, but please use your computers. Those are given to you for accessing the internet, replying to emails, keeping in contact with us. That's one of the things that that you were supposed to do. Has anybody had any problems with their computers at all? Are we okay? All right, our new students, yeah. Our new students, we're going to talk about that. At the end of today, I need to give you the laptop guidelines so you can take those home to your families and review with them what our guidelines are for the laptops. And then we're going to need them back April 7th, which we're going to have a new to camp orientation. And we need you to bring those forms back with your parents, okay? And I have a letter to give to you today with all that information, so you'll have that. If you choose not to take a computer, please let me know. There's also an option for that, so just let me know if you do not want one.
I will not be able to make the next meeting, but we will have a breakout session for engineering May 3rd, and a lot of the students that were interested in engineering expressed an interest in computer science. I will have 2 speakers May 3rd on a breakout session, so those of you who are interested are welcome to attend that breakout session. We have 2 speakers that will be talking about computer engineering.
Thank you, Mr. LaRocca. Also, our new students, could I have you stay to pick up your forms? And also, I need to get a picture of all of your smiling faces together as a group so we can post you up as our new camp students. Vivian, I wanted to ask you, can you help me with that? Is that something you can help me with here? Okay, thank you. All right, I don't know if there's anything, Mr. Bruner, do you have anything to add?
Was there one more person to do that had to share or present?
Yes, all right.
I'm going to stay quiet.
There's something else that we want to make sure we have Kayla Ganneri, who is part of our web team. She's going to give you some updates on what's going on with our website. Hold it up.
Well, move your hand up.
This way?
Move your hand up the mic to the top
like
of it.
This?
And let go of the bottom.
Let go. Hello. Okay. And Kayla, you can come on up and do that. I think that's why it was going.
Hi guys, as many of you know, the website's up and running, and within the next 2 weeks we're going to upload 21 more videos, so they'll be up, you can watch them during spring break. After that, we're going to upload videos regularly after each meeting, so if you miss the meeting, you can go and watch it. Also, Mackenzie said her name was spelled wrong, I fixed that. If there's any other problems, concerns, questions, just see me or one of the other camp members, the website team, or email through the website.
Okay, Mr. Bruner, would you like to add something?
I'll make it brief.
There was a homework assignment that you had to do. That's how brief I'll make it. I needed you to work on the homework assignment. This wasn't for my benefit, it was for yours. I gave one out last month and a month before to two different groups that had to that were working with me. And that was when we were doing the college career sort of investigation, awareness of what it was and stuff like that, because you guys are getting the college stuff as far as the prep from early college. This CAMP program is providing the career piece, but you still need to investigate all of the schools that you may be interested in. All of the schools that you may be interested in. Now you may be a little upset with me. I need you to put your name on that paper, and I need you sometime this week to turn it in to me. Oh, that's giving an opportunity, that's giving a break. So sometime this week, you find me, and I need you to give me that sheet where you did a comparison of those schools. If you do need a copy of it, I don't know if one is posted on the website, but it is. Wow. There's one posted on the website. You guys are good. There's one posted on the website. New folks, you're going to get yours at the orientation. I'm just going to give you the sheet now, just make it a 10-minute informational piece. Look at every aspect of that, front and back side, because in Upward Bound program and all the other programs, you have done a comparison. You're kind of bored with it and stuff. But what you need to do is you need to make it so it's a fourth dimension piece. That means you have to actually, okay, if you're able to, go to that college or university to see what it's like to be there. To see what it's like to be there. Okay? You have to investigate some place where you're going to pour some money into it, and you're going to be spending a good deal of your time there learning what they're giving you. Okay? So please, take advantage of that. If you can, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Those people that do have the paper, just give it to me before you leave. And that is the homework assignment that you had. Yes, ma'am? If you chose an Iowa State College, you make sure you investigate it front and back. You try to find a school in this area that's closely related to the one that you're planning on going to. Okay? So if it's a private school, public school, large or small, you still try to visit that to see if that environment is the one that's going to be suitable for you. And then always try to find a rep there that will talk to you and give you the information. Like Mr. Venturella has gone out of his way to go to Hiram and all these other colleges to just get this information ready for you. I think it was an outstanding presentation today. I hope that you got a lot out of it. It was very interesting to see that some of the things I tried to push in a math class when I was there, how important that is. Math is the language of life. It is. It is. So it's the most common language on this planet. You understand math here, you'll understand it in Germany, France, UK, anywhere. It is a common language, universal. I'm done preaching.
Okay, other than our new camp students, they can stay, please. We're going to meet right there on that area coming down from the steps. Our current camp students, if you would like to leave, you may, or if you have questions or want to talk to us about something, you can. Other than that, have a good day, and thank you for coming.
No, leave your notebook and everything here, even the lanyard that's around your neck, leave all of that stuff here. You can pack it up for us, that'll really help us out. My daughter wants to help us out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mind. All right. I know what time it is. Make sure that I'm coming.
Courtney Dozier. Courtney Dozier, could you come back over here for a second, please? And Deborah, I need you too, please. Jamisha Oliver.
Hey, come here. Yes, sir.
Deborah, Aiden, and Logan, and Jonathan. I need all of you back here so I can get pictures, please. Okay, all new camp students, this way please so we can get this group picture together.
Bring them back. Bring it back, April 10th, and call it email. You're welcome. Where did I put my purse? Oh, right there. Let me get those